What's up, YouTube? Robbie Vapes back again, and today we are checking out the Coil Master SEB stainless steel e-juice bottle that claims to be unbreakable. So stay tuned. That is right, YouTube. Today we are checking out the Coil Master SEB stainless steel e-juice bottle. Now, before we get to the specs or anything like that, what we're going to do is something a little bit different. Instead of doing the down and dirty section like I normally do, we're going to put the actual footage over here, which you should be seeing very shortly. And once we have that up, we're actually going to go through the whole thing together. It's not going to be really in sync, to be honest, because I'm not watching it live. I'm going to go through memory here. Hopefully I get it all nailed down like I want to, but just want to go through that and let you guys see the video over here. So with that being said, we're going to have like the down and dirty section while I'm talking for the first time ever. We're going to see if that works out. If you like how it looks, comment down below, let me know, and I'll be sure to do more like this if you like it. Now, that being said, let's get into the actual specs on this thing. First of all, it is a stainless steel and polycarbonate material construction. And at the same time, it also claims to be unbreakable. Now, that sounds an awful lot like a challenge to me, and I'm not one to back away from a challenge. So with that being said, I've actually included some clips at the end of this video of me trying to break this. Whether or not I succeed, I'll let you guys watch ahead whenever you're ready. But in the meantime, I really do hope you watch the rest of this review because it is important to see the actual information being told here and whether or not it's good to buy or whether or not I recommend it. Now, with all that being said, let's get into the actual specs and what exactly this whole thing entails. We're going to start with the pros and cons, starting with the cons, the price tag. The price tag on this thing is $40 US. However, as of the recording of this video, and hopefully by the time this video airs, the price tag has actually dropped to $30 US as it is on sale for 25% off. Now, that's not a bad price, but it's not cheap either. So I'll get to whether or not I recommend it based on both price points later on. In the meantime, I just want to go through the pros and cons as quickly and as efficiently as I can. Moving on from there, the next con I have is that it only holds 20 mils of juice. Now, that's not a huge con, but what makes it a bigger con is the fact that at 20 mils of juice capacity, it's actually still bigger than your average 30 mil juice bottle. So it's not really made for portability. I think the biggest thing here is the construction materials they use. You're not using plastic. It is stainless steel, so that is a big thing. But on top of that, you're also talking about potentially being unbreakable. Again, we'll find out at the end of the video whether or not that's true. So with all that being said, I think 20 mils of juice, I would have liked to have seen a 30 mil capacity. That's just me. That being said, on the flip side, if you're like me and you buy your juice in bulk, for example, these 120 mil bottles, it is nice to have a portable juice carrying container around, and something like this isn't too bad, and it is portable compared to a 120 mil. If, however, you buy your juice individually at 30 mil bottles each, it may not make sense for you. It may make sense for you, depending on your preferences. Now, the big thing is it does not leak, and that is a big pro. And I want to mention that because a lot of the glass bottles out there, which usually a lot of people prefer to use glass bottles just for the fact that it's glass over plastic, will actually end up leaking on you. So glass bottles can actually end up leaking, and that's a big thing. And I think I've experienced it a number of times. I'm assuming most of you guys have as well with glass bottles with little dropper caps in them. They do leak quite a bit. This one is very secure. It also has a locking method on it as well, so you can lock it up so that it doesn't go off in your pocket. Although even if it does, the cap on top of it does actually go on pretty tightly and it doesn't ever leak out. I haven't had it leak out on me once. I have opened it up a couple times where there's juice a little bit in the well there, but at the same time, it's not too bad because honestly, at least it's not getting in my pocket or on my clothing. The final thing I want to talk about here really quickly is actually a few little suggestions I have for this. So I already mentioned I'd like to have a 30 mil option. I would love to see a 30 mil option for around that same price point, maybe even a little bit less if we can bring the price down. And if we had a 30 mil option, I think that would be a better option for most people because then you can take your 30 mil bottles and just chuck it right into there directly. 30 mils, 30 mils. This one, like I said, does fit 20 mils. If you push it, you can get 22 mils out of it. But at the same time, honestly, I think I'd like to see a 30 mil option just for my preference. The other recommendation I have is actually a little bit finicky. Again, I'm just being picky here, but at the same time, for that price point, I think I'm allowed to be a little bit picky. And for this, we have to dissect the actual bottle itself and start naming some parts to it. What I'm going to call the part that covers up the needle that actually releases the e-juice is the cap. The part that we're going to call the fill option is going to be the lid. So the lid is what you're going to open up if you want to fill it. The cap is what you're going to want to open up if you want to start dripping with it. Now that we've identified the two different parts, let's talk about what my final recommendation is. They're both actually attached together in some way. They're both just threaded separately. You have one threading for the lid and one threading for the top on top of that. Both of them are regular threaded, which basically means they're both going to come off the same direction. Now this isn't a huge problem, but it does happen every so often. When I try and take the needle part off, or the cap part, what happens is it actually ends up taking off the lid. So I'm taking off the whole thing instead of just the top. Now juice doesn't leak out like that because I hold it up straight up like this. So if it does come all apart, it's not a big deal, but it's still a big thing. And I want to say I would love to see it reverse threaded on at least one of those options. So one of them turns off like that and one goes off like this. That way you're not taking both of them off constantly. There is some knurling around the top, which does make it easier to grip. And if you hold your fingers in the right position, it's actually pretty easy to take apart. Again, I'm being picky here, but at the same time, for that price point, I think we're allowed to be a little bit picky on this device. So with all that being said, the big thing is, how do I feel about this? Would I recommend it? Would I not recommend it? And how has my personal experience with this thing been? First, I'm going to start with my personal experience. Despite everything I just said, it probably seems like I'm giving this a negative review. But at the same time, surprisingly, I actually really enjoyed this thing. I don't know if it's the fact that it always pumps out 1.25 mils of juice with every press, just like that, super simple, super easy. Or I don't know if it's the fact that it feels cool, it looks cool. And honestly, the construction materials are really nice. It feels like a premium product. But that being said, again, that's just my personal opinion on it. So how do I recommend it to you guys? I would go by saying this. If you have the money laying around and you can afford something like this, and you are looking into something that's going to store your juice securely without leaking, and it's going to look good too, and it's going to be durable, I think this is a great way to go. Again, if you have the money. Not everybody has the money for basically an empty bottle of e-juice. I mean, it doesn't even come with e-juice in it, right? For $40, I'd like to see a little bit of e-juice in there, but I'm just kidding, guys. But anyways, you get what I mean. I mean, it's definitely not something that everyone's going to be able to spend that kind of money on, nor is it something that everyone really should spend that money on. But if you do have the money and if you have the need for it, especially, like I said, if you buy your juice in bulk, this really isn't a bad investment. So with all that being said, the biggest question is still unanswered. What is the durability like? Well, let's find out right now. So as you can see, unfortunately, it did not stand up as well as I had hoped. Now that being said, I will say this. It's almost still usable if it wasn't for one thing that I think broke a little bit too much on this, and that's that top cap I mentioned earlier, the part that actually accesses the needle where you're going to drip your juice. If I try and take it off, it's stuck on there. It's dented inside of it, so the threading is completely ruined, and what that means is I can only get to the juice by taking off the lid, not the top cap. So I have direct access to the juice, but that doesn't really help me if I'm trying to drip, and it pretty much defeats the purpose of this little thing. So that's what it looks like. Unfortunately, it didn't stand up as well as I had hoped, but at the same time, it did do a pretty good job considering I used a hammer on it. So with that being said, guys, that's going to do it for today, and I hope you guys enjoyed that video. And until next time, YouTube, happy vaping. Damn, I think CoilMaster is going to be pissed. I wonder if they'll warranty it.